It's my pleasure to welcome and introduce the Interstate Bridge Project Replacement Project Program Administrator, Greg Johnson.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. CRDC has been an excellent partner. We're just getting to know Apex, and the things that were said earlier about getting folks ready to be a part of this program is so important to the goals we have for this program of getting small and local businesses involved. So I'm going to run through an update of where the program is at and talk about some of the opportunities that we think exist for businesses like yourselves to be involved. So let's go to the next slide. So I guess I should do a little bit of an introduction. So I'm a shared resource between Washington State DOT and Oregon DOT, trying to get this project, lead this project with a great team into construction. So I've been here for a little over 3.5 years. I lived the first 1.5 years in Portland, and now I live in Vancouver. Our office is 2 blocks down the street. So if there's ever any interest in coming to any of our office hours or anything, we are right down in the Umpqua Bank building. So this is where our project is located, and bridge replacement is somewhat of a misnomer. This is actually a 5-mile corridor with a big bridge in the middle of it. So the blue circles you see on there are 7 interchanges that exist within this 5-mile corridor. Now, any modern transportation design, you would not put 7 interchanges in 5 miles. It causes a number of the problems that we see. But within those 7 interchanges, 70% of the traffic that goes across this bridge are either starting their trip or ending their trip at one of these 7 interchanges. So you can see that that's part of the driver of why we need to modernize these interchanges, connect these interchanges with auxiliary lanes to make sure that this investment that we make works best for future generations. So at the north, we start at SR 500, and on the south end, we go all the way down to Interstate and North Victory on the Portland side. So let's go to the next slide, please. This is probably the most important slide. So take a mental picture of this, or even a physical picture of this. This is our program schedule slide. And you've heard the old saying that time is money. This is what our team is working towards. And probably the most important bullet on the right side, lower right to the bottom, is our in-water work window. This, we need to be in the Columbia River with a contractor, building work platforms, building cofferdams in September of 2026. So everything that we're doing is leading up to that date. Now, we're going to have some early work contracts that'll go out early in 2025 to do some preliminary work, but that's the first big contract. If we miss that window, we will miss an entire year. And a year in a mega project of this size means 10 years later, when we're finishing up, means inflation of $300 million that buy you nothing. So our team is focused on getting to that in-water work window. But currently, we're in that green box. We're doing the environmental phase. We are, and we're going to talk more about our draft supplemental environmental impact statement. But we're doing early design. We're working on funding and grant applications. We're starting to put our construction packaging together, which hopefully will be of great interest to you folks to say, okay, this is right now pegged at $6 billion plus. how many contracts will there be? Right now, we're talking about more than 24 contracts to get this thing built. Our grant applications, we also have ongoing tribal consultation and community engagement. And some of our community engagement and communications folks are sitting here and going to talk about a job within a job. This is a effort that in my 41 years, I've not seen a more professional, dedicated team to making sure that we are engaging communities on each side of the river to make folks knowledgeable about this program and get them involved. But once again, this is important. We cannot miss any of our deadlines. And we'll talk about where we're at in the NEPA or National Environmental Policy Act process. So let's go to the next slide. So what do we want to build? This is what we want to build. So the top slide is looking at Marine Drive, looking north towards Vancouver. And we are hoping to have that yellow line that you see is the extension of the yellow line, the MAX line in Portland from the Expo Center that will join up with our bridge across the river and end at Evergreen Street here in Vancouver. So right a block away from here. So this is different than what the Columbia River Crossing had proposed. They were going to take light rail through the downtown streets in Vancouver. But Vancouver has changed tremendously since those days, 10 years ago. The waterfront has just blossomed. There are viable businesses that we do not want to impact with light rail. So we're going to run light rail right along the freeway, terminated at a transportation hub at Evergreen that will have light rail, buses, bike walk, any mode of transportation you can think of. That's going to be the city's hub for transportation connections. But what are we trying to accomplish? So we want to have a new earthquake resilient multimodal bridge. We also want to have safety shoulders in this corridor. Anybody ever driven across the bridge and said, boy, if I break down, guess what? I'm going to be in the middle of an active lane. So safety shoulders are meant to give you a refuge area as you are crossing through this corridor. We talked a little bit about the transit. We think that in the future, transit can take a load off of the highway mode, that transit can possibly draw up to 30,000 trips per day in the future. And that is huge to relieve the highway mode from being the only way you can viably get through this corridor. Active transportation, we're going to make one of the largest investments in bike walk facilities that this region has seen. So to get across the bridge, we're going to have dedicated bike walk space. Right now, over 80% of the existing bridge is dedicated just to cars and trucks. The new bridge, that number goes down to a little over 55% will be dedicated. The rest will be light rail, bike walk, to get folks options of how you cross this, this region. A couple of the other things that you see, if you look at the top, there's a light gray bridge. That's a new bridge. Currently, if you live on Hayden Island, the only way you can get on or off the island is on the freeway. So we heard from the folks who live on Hayden Island. They said, boy, we'd like a better option. So that's a local arterial bridge that goes from Portland to the south side of Hayden Island. So if you live on the island, you don't have to get on I-5 to exit. And that gives you more options and makes it a cleaner interchange for the folks who live on the island. So the interchange on Hayden Island, if you've gone on it, it's kind of a mess. So now we're looking at a partial interchange where if you're coming south from Vancouver, you can get off on Hayden Island. If you're going north, you can get onto I-5. The other movements will now be in that full interchange at Marine Drive. So once again, a lot of difference from what exists out there now to what we're proposing on building. One of the other things we heard about Hayden Island is that I-5 cuts the island right in half. So we are now looking at extending a local street, making connections with sidewalks, bike paths, so folks can use the entirety of the island without having the inconvenience of taking a big, huge loop around the island to get somewhere. So these type of projects that we're talking about are going to be ideal for smaller packages to be built. The local street packages, even the local bridge, may be something that will be a smaller package that local firms can see themselves working on. The view from downtown Vancouver looking south is the bottom view. And once again, we're going to be connecting to the pathway, the bike walk pathway on the riverfront. We're going to have a riverfront transit station. So to service all of the growth that's happening along the riverfront. And some of those transit station packages will be sized for firms that are medium to small to once again build transit stations and some of the other things that go along with station construction. Some of the benefits, once again, we're going to have an earthquake resilient bridge. Right now, that bridge sits on wood piles and silty soils. If that Cascadia subduction off the coast ever moves, we are not sure. As a matter of fact, we're really close to being sure that bridge is not going to stand. It'll either be in the bottom of the river or it will be disabled to the point where it will not move up and down. So having that bridge and having this corridor be a resilient, earthquake resilient corridor for future is huge. Once again, equity has been one of the things that our team has been focusing on. Projects like this in the early history of DOTs just kind of came in and said, guess what, get out of our way, this is what we're doing. I came in at the tail end of DOTs having that attitude. DOTs today are different. They recognize, hey, we're coming into your front yard, we're coming into your backyard. We have to do things that accommodate people and make sure that we are talking to folks and folks have a voice in this. So our efforts around equity are aimed at making sure those voices get heard, making sure that small businesses have a place at the table. The freight connection is important. We have ports on either side of the river that are very robust and ship a lot of things on this freeway. I-5 is the only West Coast freeway that connects Mexico and Canada. And in between, there are huge ports all the way from Everett down to San Diego. So these are important criteria. 11% of the traffic that crosses this bridge is freight traffic. And the value of that freight is upwards of $130 million per day. So having this bridge be out of commission would have serious impacts to the economy here. We talked about bike, walk, transit, the jobs that are going to be generated here. We're looking at a multiplier of 2 times the investment that we make is going to come back to this region in jobs, in new investments of things that we built. We're looking at transit-oriented development issues, both at Evergreen on the waterfront and on Hayden Island. But last but not least, we support the climate goals of both states. And you'll hear some of the folks who are negative towards this program say this is just a freeway expansion. Right now we have 3 lanes going northbound, 3 lanes going southbound. That is going to continue. We're not building any more through lanes. What we are doing is building what's called auxiliary lanes to connect those 7 interchanges where, and I'll give you the example, the first time I drove across the bridge, and I was getting off at C Street, and there was SR 14, and I kind of turned into SR 14, and that's not where I want to go. So auxiliary lanes help to relieve some of that decision-making, give you more time to merge, to exit or merge to get onto the freeway. So when you hear folks casting this as a freeway expansion, this is making this freeway smarter and operate better. Last thing on climate and environment. So anybody knows what happens to any drop of rain that hits that bridge? Goes directly into the river. So you know what's on that deck is fluids, oil, rubber tire debris that goes directly into the river. So our project is going to build enclosed drainage system where we're going to capture all of that. And we're going to take it to detention ponds, treat it before that water goes back into the Columbia River. That is a huge effort to make sure that we are adding to the future health of the salmon population and the future health of the river itself. So let's go to the next slide. You guys know I could talk about this stuff all day. So what are we studying? We are studying 2 things in this National Environmental Policy Act Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement. So we're studying graphically what you saw in that last slide, the modified locally preferred alternative. Now we have a few design options that we're looking at to help solve some problems. But the second thing we have to study is a no-build alternative. Now you hear folks say, well, why aren't you studying a tunnel? We have studied a tunnel. We have looked at a tunnel. A tunnel will not work at this location. If I could build a tunnel here, we'd all be heroes. Tunnel does not work at this location. By the time you daylight a tunnel, you are up almost to Evergreen. You miss SR 14, you miss the interchange on Hayden Island, and the folks who say tunnel, 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 we have told them, we've demonstrated to them, and they just don't believe it. So there's that. We've studied a 3rd bridge somewhere else. It's not going to happen until this issue gets resolved. Nobody's going to move I-5. So I-5 has to get dealt with before a conversation about a 3rd bridge crossing in this metropolitan area can even be thought about. So all of those things were looked at and addressed in earlier permutations of this project. So we're looking at 2 things, the modified locally preferred alternative and no bid. So let's go to the next slide. So what's in the modified locally preferred alternative? All of those things we talked about. The design options, we're looking at a movable span because the Coast Guard wants us to look at a movable span. Do we think a movable span is necessary here? No. But the Coast Guard, their main or their only care is that river traffic goes unimpeded. So can anybody tell me the last time a load higher than 116 feet went through this corridor on the river? 12 years ago. So we think that building a fixed span at 116 feet is the smartest thing we can do. Now, there are businesses that need more than 116 feet. 12 years ago, they needed it. So we are talking to those businesses about, okay, can you build your, whatever you're building in smaller modules and ship it under 116 feet? Yes, they can. Or can you relocate that part of your business that builds big things on the downriver side of the bridge? Yeah, that's a possibility. So we're talking to those folks and we're going to negotiate a settlement with them so they will not need anything more than 116 feet. So this is The movable span, we have to carry it forward until we have those, agreements in hand. We're looking at single level, which would have all of the modes on one level. That means a very wide bridge. So bike walk, all the traffic lanes, all the transit would be on one level. Now, it makes for easier construction. And it's less costly construction. Having a double-decker stacked, having northbound and southbound on the top level, having transit underneath, having bike walk underneath would be a stacked design. It can be done, but it limits the type of bridge you can do. So we are looking at it, and once again, we'll make some decisions on and put that before the public as we go to a final supplement. C Street ramps here, the city is working with us. They say, well, we may not want C Street ramps here because as accidents happen on the freeway, you know what happens in downtown? It backs up and it shuts down the downtown. We had an accident, I think it was 2 months ago, and the accident happened at 6 a.m. Traffic didn't clear from downtown until 11 a.m. So these are things that we have to look at and understand. The auxiliary lane question is one, probably where we get the most heat besides light rail. But folks are saying, why are you building this thing so big and wide? And once again, if you've ever tried to dive onto the freeway with no space to get in, you're on somebody else's tender mercies. If you have auxiliary lanes, now you can merge in smoothly in and all. And if you're going from interchange to interchange, let's say you're going from Mill Plain to SR 500, you won't ever have to get into the through lanes of traffic to make that happen. So we're looking at one auxiliary lane versus two auxiliary lanes and what that does for future traffic. Park and ride locations. A lot of urban areas are getting away from park and ride lots. We're looking at it to see if it will help draw more people to use transit. So it's one of the issues we're looking at. There's an alignment shift also that we're looking at with Fort Vancouver being right there. Do we move the roadway slightly to avoid impacts to Fort Vancouver? If we do that, then we're impacting the west side. We're impacting the theater. We're impacting the reserve. So all of those things are questions that we're going to be talking about during this draft supplemental. So let's go to the next slide. So next slide. So what does a environmental document have in it? We're going to have 5 full chapters and appendices. So our team is figuring out smart ways where if you are interested in any of these things, you're going to have easy access. You're going to be able to type in hazardous materials and find every reference to hazardous materials in our document. This document is going to be long. It's going to be big. Overall, with all the appendices we have and all of the exhibits, we're probably talking about 10,000 pages. But we will have it electronically, and we will have paper copies. We will have it where folks, if you are visually impaired, to where folks can have it read to them. But this is going to be a large document, and that's why we were giving folks 60 days to dig in. And 60 days is the maximum amount of time that's allowed. But a lot of things get covered in this. A lot of technical discussions, and some folks love it. They're going to dig in. The folks who are going to sue us are going to dig in very deeply. And God, we welcome it because we put together a very good document. So next slide, please. So 60 days, we're hoping towards the end of April, maybe. Katie is giving me the think.
No, I wasn't.
But So sometime this spring, we will have that document released and out on the street. And once that document drops, there's 60 days to submit comments. We'll have public hearings. We're gonna have a full-out blitz to get people commenting on this. And the thing that I ask, if you're negative, well, go ahead, tell us what you hate about this. But if you're positive, tell us that too. Because as you know, negativity is easy. All right. The old saying, I can get any old jackass to kick down a barn, but getting one to build it is a whole different story. So we are looking for both positive and negative comments on what we have done. So we'll have more information. You're going to see a blitz from our public engagement, from our communications team, on our website, on social media, everything. We're going to pull out the stops to make sure folks know how to access and how to comment. And if your comment is, I hate IBR, guess what our response is going to be? Thank you. And moving them along. Now, if you say I hate IBR because it's too wide, it's too big, we're going to give you a reasoned answer of why things are the way they are. So if you say I love IBR, guess what the answer is going to be? Thank you. But if you say I love IBR because X, Y, and Z, then we're going to give you a reasoned answer of why that is there. So we're going to record every comment. We're bound by the federal process to answer every comment that comes into the program. So it may be a thank you if it's I hate IBR. Oh, thank you. All right, next slide, please. Here are some of the things that we're going to do. We're already presenting to our advisory groups. We have an equity advisory group, a community advisory group. We have an executive steering group. We have a bi-state legislative group. So we have more groups than you can shake a stick at. So, but they're all necessary to help this program reach into the different constituencies that are necessary to get a project like this built. Presentation to businesses. This counts as that. Community-based organizations, neighborhood associations, all of these things. This summer, our team had a wonderful time. And I kid them, they were spending their Saturdays and Sundays staffing tables at different fairs around the region. And we had hundreds of people stop at those booths to give us their input. So we're going to continue to do that. We have office hours at our building that can be either in person or virtual. We have a program email inbox, social media. They want me to do a TikTok dancing on the bridge, and I've so far in 3 years resisted that, but we have a program newsletter. And so we have something where you can sign up and get real-time information of what's going on. But the public hearings and the public notifications are part of the draft supplemental process to take those public comments. We'll do community briefings. One of the smarter things that this program has done to expand our reach is we created a community-based organization mini grant program. So this is our second round this past year where we brought in folks who can take a megaphone with our message out into the community where we may not be able to reach. So those are things that we're doing, listening sessions, community forums, everything we can do. I don't want one person in this region to say, what is IBR? Oh, I never heard of that. So that's why we're doing all of this. We're going to have a section of how to public comment. So that's basically a session that says, don't say I hate IBR, or don't say I love IBR. So next slide, please. So once again, this spring, we will have web-based forms, email, hard mail. If you say, I want to write a letter to IBR about this, send us a letter. You can call our office and leave a verbal message. It will be recorded just as if you sent something via email or on our website. And if you comment at a public hearing, it will get captured and it will get answered. So they don't have to be in English. There's a large segment of the community that has English as a second language. They're most comfortable communicating in their primary language. We have put out documents in 7 spoken languages and 11 written languages, or I may have it backwards. But we are making sure that everybody has a part to play in this. We'll accommodate accessibility. We built a tactile model for the vision impaired. So if you are a member of the School of the Blind, you can come to our office, which is ADA accessible, and we have a tactile model that you can touch and see what we are planning on building. So these are just some of the things that we're doing. So let's go to the next slide. So what's up next? The funding. How are we going to pay for all this? It all sounds great, but how are you going to pay for it? So we have a commitment from Washington, the state of Washington in 2022. They said, we're going to give you $1 billion. And that was important because Washington, the last go round, pulled out at the last minute. They wouldn't have pulled out, this bridge would be built. You'd be driving on a new bridge, more than likely. But Washington said no at the last minute. This time, Washington came stepped up to the plate first and said, here's $1 billion, get this thing built. This past legislative session in Oregon committed $1 billion. They also, Washington this last year in 2023, gave us the ability to toll the bridge, so a toll authority. Oregon, we already had that ability, so we anticipate that tolling will bring in between 1.1 and 1.5 billion dollars total over a 40-year bond payback period. So an important part of how we can fund this bridge. So what that means is we have all of the local funds in place. Now we're going to our federal partners and saying, this is the interstate. For God's sake, this is I-5. So what are you going to bring to the plate? So we applied for a mega grant, and at the end of December, they said, we're going to show you how serious we are. We're going to give you almost twice what we've given any other project in this country. So we received a grant of $600 million from our federal partners. $600 million on a $6 billion project. It's okay, but it doesn't carry the mail, as they say. We have another grant application in for $1.5 billion. So we are hoping to hear back from our federal partners on that sometime this spring. And we're going to see how serious they are. You've heard those saying about the pig and the chicken, who's committed to breakfast. So we want them to be the pig who is committed to breakfast, because pig is going to give parts of himself. The chicken is just going to lay a few eggs and say, yeah, go forward. So, yeah. So with that, the last piece of the funding we're looking at is actually a Federal Transit Administration grant. And I characterize this as being a take-home exam, an open book exam, where if we do everything they say and we do it in the right way, they will give us a grant amount based on how much traffic we can attract off of the freeway and onto a transit mode. So we're looking at between 900 million and 1.1 billion in that Federal Transit Administration grant. So that will complete the funding picture. And I'm going to put a little asterisk by that for now. We have an estimate that says, okay, this project is between 5 billion on the low end, 7.5 billion on the high end, with the most likely outcome right around 6 billion. That was done almost 2 years ago. So we update our estimates constantly. So our next estimate will come out this summer, and we will see if these numbers still hold and will get this project built. We are not going back to state legislators and saying, give us more money. Our federal partners have to be the first backstop to step up if we see inflationary issues raising the cost of this project. So this is probably the second most important slide. So let's go to the next slide. This is ones that hopefully will be of interest to you. We are developing a construction delivery plan. How are you gonna build this thing? So we know the first thing that has to be built is the bridge. And so we're gonna build from the bridge, and then we're gonna build out in concentric circles, both south and north, to connect the bridge to the important interchanges and other things that need to be built. We're also looking at, can we get light rail up and running as quickly as possible? So if you say, boy, I hate sitting in this traffic, because we know we're gonna try and keep 3 lanes open in both ways. But we know when folks see large construction equipment, that's your first, you're gonna be looking and there's gonna be slowdowns in traffic. So we're gonna try and have alternative ways for folks to cross the river during construction. So once again, 205. I love to. Great bridge. They carry 170,000 people a day over 205. We carry 140. So if everybody starts diverting over there, you're gonna be sitting in the same traffic jam that you might have had if you stayed on I-5. But people are gonna do it. They have a choice. People say, oh, okay, I'm gonna make this choice. But we're gonna hopefully do some smart things and to try and keep traffic flowing as best possible in this corridor. So later this spring, and we will make sure that CREDC and Apex get notification, we're gonna have a session. And it's probably gonna be at the Hilton, because it's gonna be a big session where we're gonna invite contractors, designers to hear what our delivery plan is and give us comments and feedback on it, to say, yeah, you got it about right, or boy, that was dumb as hell. What'd you do that for? So we will have that session probably sometime this spring, probably April timeframe. So let's go to the next slide. So some of our delivery consideration, maximizing DBE, and we should put also small business opportunities. Having multiple bidders, making sure that we have competitive bids on everything we put out. The cost. We know that if we make these contracts too big, you're going to start limiting competition. How the funding comes in is also important. So we know that we cannot just start off with building transit, because we won't have those transit funds in our bank that early. Making sure we are still hitting a schedule, because now you take one big project, separated it into 24 contracts, you're gonna have monster integration, monster conflicts that you're gonna have to deal with. So making sure that we can stay on schedule, minimize risk, maintain commuter and freight mobility through the corridor, and try and get transit up and running as quickly as possible to provide a relief valve in the corridor. Next slide, please. So we're looking at delivery methods. You know, everybody, DOTs are great at design, bid, build. We design it, you bid it, you build it. Yes, the risk is on the department. So we've gone to more collaborative methods, design bid or design build, just more collaborative, where you design it, you build it, and we'll see how it goes. Falling out of favor a little bit. So we're looking at design build, we're looking at progressive design build, We're looking at CMGC, which in Washington is GCCM, to say, can we have more collaborative construction methods where we're not gonna be fighting over whether you have to move that pile of dirt from here to here. And so we're looking at how we can deliver this thing in a collaborative way. Funding sources, once again, are key critical. The design, we have folks who have said to us, yeah, don't build a fancy bridge, just build a utilitarian bridge. But then I have another contingent that says, if you spend over $1 billion on a bridge and it's a plain looking thing, we're gonna come back and we're gonna get the torches and pitchforks out after you. So we have folks who wanna see iconic bridge. We have folks who wanna see simplicity. So we're still working on what that is gonna look like. We're putting together project specifications. We're looking at limiting project size, once again, to make sure that we can get a number of local contractors, small businesses working on this thing. And once again, the schedule is key. Staying on schedule for a mega project is key critical. I'll give you an example. Before I came here, I worked on the Gordie Howe Bridge in between Detroit and Windsor. They happened to start building in 2018. And guess what happened in 2020? Pandemic. And now guess how much they are saying that's gonna cost? $750 million out of a $5 billion project. So 20% almost of that project is now being looked at because of delays that were caused by pandemic. So schedule is king. So next slide, please. So this is another important slide for folks to understand. And this is a concept at this point. So all of these different colors are different parts of the project that we are looking at. How can you break this up? And we're going to make this presentation available to CREDC and APEX. So, so you guys can look at the slides and have questions. Right now, this is concept. This is not carved in stone, but this is how our team right now says this thing can probably most efficiently be built, maintaining traffic and breaking it into sizable chunks that are not too big. You'll see some of this will get broken down even into smaller pieces. So we're going to look at, can we size some of these pieces that only small businesses can bid on. So that is going to be a number of things that Aiden Gronauer, who is our DBE civil rights manager, is going to be looking at. How can we do things smartly to make sure we're getting small businesses engaged? But this is concept. We know that the river bridge right now, one package itself is probably going to be the largest package. It's probably going to be between $1 billion and $1.5 billion. And that's going to get the national folks in. Even though Keywood is right a stone's throw, they are national. Flatiron, Trailer Brothers, all of these big contractors who build big bridges over big rivers are going to be interested in that blue part. So, but they're going to need teammates. They're going to need folks who know the local market, who know labor, who know all of the idiosyncrasies of this area. So this is concept, and we're going to hopefully hear from you guys and from the industry in general when we have that meeting in April. But if you see this and you want to contact us and say, whoa, we have some concerns, you can contact us. You can send us an email, and we will take your questions and put them in the whole mix of things we're looking at. So next slide, please. So our commitment to disadvantaged businesses. Currently, our team that's working on the getting through the environmental processes and early design, we set a 15% DBE goal. They came back and said, you know what, we're going to set a goal for ourselves of 20%. And they are hewing very close to that 20%. So they are doing a great job. But this is on design stuff. Once you get in construction, it's a different animal because of insurances. All those higher risk things happen once you start putting shovels in the ground. But we had a DBE forum. Apex was there this morning where we talked to DBE firms as well as entities that represent small businesses and DBEs about what size projects do you think are appropriate? What things can we do to make sure that you are involved? So we're going to keep doing those things, listening to help craft what our program looks like. We're going to look at what services you may need. Apex, and I did not know a lot about Apex, but I'm finding out about Apex. Does a great job of navigating through the red tape and the bureaucracy that tends to be associated with DOTs and other large public owners. So we're going to be partnering with Apex to say, how can we help you guys in your mission? So we're also talking about eventually having, once construction starts, getting an ombudsman. And that's an important concept for small businesses, because who wants to go up to the guy who just gave you a job and say, you're going to treat me fair? They say, oh yeah, thank you, and thump you off the project. Having an ombudsman as a go-between to say, okay, here's what I'm seeing. Here's where you can do better, prime contractor. So having tools like that in our toolbox, we think is going to be tremendously important. So next slide, please. Workforce opportunities. This is going to be huge. This is going to be 10 years of construction. We have some folks who are probably in junior high right now who may end up working on this and potentially journeying out on this project. So we are looking at how can we help develop the workforce that's necessary. And we'd love to say that we're the only project going on, but as you guys may have seen, Hood River just got $200 million to help build Hood River Bridge. So we're going to be competing for resources with Hood River, with Rose Quarter, all the projects in Seattle. Sound Transit has $54 billion in the bank up in Seattle. We're going to be competing with those folks. So we have to make sure we're doing smart things to develop the workforce here and giving people opportunities who may not have ever seen themselves working on a construction project. So we had the two regional workforce entities, one on this side of the river, one on the Portland side, because we're like Noah's Ark. Everything we do, we have to do in pairs. We have to do one for the north side, one for the south side. And that's not a bad thing. But we do want both communities involved completely. So we partnered. They have put together a study. We are reading it, understanding it, and we're going to be putting that study out for folks to see. We're having contractor meet and greets. The one we had this morning was a roundtable, but we're going to continue to do that to hear from small businesses and DBEs as we move forward. Next slide, please. I promise you I'm getting to the end. These are some of the opportunities that we think are going to be available. Some are technical, some are construction oriented. Trucking is going to be huge. We're also looking at, okay, guess what? If you're trucking in here, is your truck using clean fuel? Mr. Contractor, can we get you to now incentivize you to use low or no emission vehicles on this project? So things like that are going to be important. So you can see we have a plethora of things that we're going to need. Next slide, please. So how do you contract with ODOT and WSDOT? And the general answer I hear is not very easy. We're going to try and change that. Aiden is working on, okay, if I'm certified on one side of the river, I'm automatically certified on the other. I don't have to go through that knothole again. So we're looking at smart things that we can do, and that's why we hope to partner with Apex to make sure that we are knocking down barriers along the way. So we have websites where you can go on ODOT and WSDOT's website for more information. But once again, we want to have an easy button to get this done. Next slide. We talked about the draft supplemental, ad nauseum. Refinements made to the design. After we hear from the public, we're going to say, this is what we want to build. Then we're going to go into what's called the final supplemental process, record of decision. And we're going to look to get approval from our federal partners to say, you have a project. Then we're going to begin construction with some early work contracts, which may be utility relocation. So if your firms do that, if you do the design work associated with that, we're gonna be interested in hearing from you. And then in late 2026, we're gonna be out in that river. And if we're not out in that river, we've got a problem. So, all right, next slide. How do you get a hold of us? interstatebridge.org. Our website is renowned. You know, you hate to say world class, but it's world class. We have calendars where you can go to, whether it's equity advisory group, community advisory group. You can see when those meetings are happening. We have calendars for everything important that we are doing. Our monthly newsletter is tremendously informative. It's not intrusive, so we aren't going to have ads that say, "Yeah, what's the great question you always get that you never want to hear? Have you paid your insurance?" or whatever the craziness that you get ads associated with. No, you get our newsletter, and that's what you'll get. That's it. So this is a great way to stay in touch with the program and see where we're at. Last slide. Thank you so much for your attention. And we'll take any questions or concerns. And I have my group, my people here to help answer questions. So.
All right. Well, thank you for a tremendously thorough, detailed, transparent, amazing presentation. It just gets better and better. Like every time we can get around. Sometime back when this started, it was, it was a handful of bullet points on a slide, and it has evolved into amazing concepts, more whole budget than this region could have imagined once upon a time, and a clear articulation of ways that the community can participate, and we really need to take advantage of those. So we did have one question come in that was curious about what the definition of a span bridge is. And so I know that that's not the intended trajectory, but just by way of definition, what does that mean?
So two things. A movable span is what we have now. And there are several types of movable spans, two of them right within view. The railroad bridge further to the west is what's called a swing span, and it pivots to let traffic through. It's built low because you don't have any obstructions above. What we have is a called a lift bridge, where the entire deck goes up in parallel, and it can reach up to a height of 178 feet. So the other type of movable span is called a bascule bridge, where it opens like this and you have unlimited height. Movable spans are notorious for two things. Number one, they cost a lot. Number two, they are somewhat unreliable. You can build lift spans. Modern lift spans are a little better than old school lift spans and bascules, but sometimes those things will get stuck. You get a 120-degree day, things don't want to move like you have designed them to. So we're proposing a fixed span bridge, which means nothing moves. The bridge is what it is, 116 feet above the water. Everything can go underneath it. What can't go underneath, build it in smaller units or build it on the other side of the bridge. So fixed span at 116 is what we're proposing to do.
All right, thank you. And we've had a couple of thank yous for the great information and appreciation for listening in. We had about 40 people online dialing in addition to our audience in the room. So it's great to be helping to get the word out. But we have a couple additional questions. So one of them is, I heard the project will start on the Oregon side and work its way to the Washington side. Is there clarity within the concept about directionality of the build?
We are going to build in concentric circles, starting at the bridge. So in the middle of the river at the state line, we're going to build out and out and out. If we started on one side and said, we'll get to that other side when we get to you, that would not be an acceptable solution. So you will see construction proceeding, once again, starting at the center and moving out in both directions.
Very nice. There was a question about the current height of the bridge when fully extended vertically, and I think you covered that.
178 feet. Now, one of the things that happened, the original bridge was built in 1917, and it was straight across, and it has about a 30 to 40 foot clearance from the water. In 1958, when the second bridge, when the interstate came along, they put the hump in the bridge. So you wouldn't have the tremendous amount of lifts. You used to get over 1,000 lifts per year back when that bridge was flat. So now you have the hump, and that gets a ton of recreational. If you have a sailboat, you generally can get under that 70 feet. So 70 feet now is the maximum without having to have a lift. So.
Now you walked us through the different phases of the project, and for people in the room or in the Zoom who are thinking, well, that's still a ways out. How could I best be preparing myself now as a small business? There are so many ways, but you have facilitated bridge projects in your successful career. Maybe you could give a couple of top of mind ideas for how people and companies can start preparing now.
It is never too early. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. So we need folks who are ready. And so talking to potential partners, talking about joint ventures to increase the things that you can do, those conversations need to be happening now. Lining up suppliers and getting a feel for pricing, those things need to start happening now. So it is not too early. I guarantee you this year and a half is going to fly by, and we're going to be in the midst of things. And I want everybody in this room who wants to be a part of this to be ready, and to be ready to be a teammate, to be ready to lead a part of the project. So having conversations with the IBR team, I think, is key crucial to understand what this thing is going to look like and what packages are going to look like.
Because of the scale of the project, CRDC, in collaboration with IBR about a year ago, hosted a session on teaming. And one of the takeaways that was evident is that teaming, whether you're a small business or a very large business, can be beneficial. And those types of arrangements are ways or inroads for accessibility to a lot of companies across the spectrum and across the region. And Apex will host a teaming workshop again in the springtime. We had a question come in, and I'm going to reword it a little bit. Could you share the extent to which the contract packaging team is thinking about prevailing wage and how the Oregon and Washington and the federal funding streams all jumble together under the prevailing wage umbrella?
It's a great question. So right now, every project we have will have federal dollars, so there will be Davis-Bacon wage rates across the board. We have been asked by both states to look at a project labor agreement, so we can potentially have labor harmony. There's a strike, okay, guess what? Because if that strike happens and it throws our schedule off, that could be hundreds of millions of dollars. So we're looking at the most risky of our projects to possibly putting a project labor agreement on it. And I know for small businesses, that is painful. So we're also looking at not every contract we have are gonna have that project labor agreement. So I know there are a lot of non-union firms and entities that that build tremendous things, and we are tremendously respectful of them. So we wanna make sure that they see themselves in this project as well. So the floor will be Davis-Bacon wage rates. Project labor agreements on certain parts of this thing may come into play.
Well, it's great to know that there will be variability and accessibility to a lot of different sizes and types of companies and company ownership. Along those lines, I know IBR has been out at OWAMI, and you mentioned some of the public outreach, specifically asking for companies to share, what size bites, how much capacity do you have, how much bonding do you have, how much of your overall portfolio are you interested in contributing to IBR projects? And I would underline what you said, which is that there is a ton of opportunity for small businesses or businesses in the community to be able to share what capacity looks like to be able to help inform this nexus of contracts that will be emerging in a lot of different sizes.
Yeah, we definitely need to hear from folks like yourselves about package sizing, about, what's that sweet spot? And some of that colored map that you saw, we can start breaking those things down into smaller, more edible chunks for firms to see themselves helping build this thing. We don't want, we don't want a big international firm to come in and have their thumb on everything and squeeze companies, as we've seen in certain instances. And it's not across the board. There are some great big international firms that do great work, but sometimes they lose perspective because they are so big. So what we're trying to do is get a good mix of, okay, we know there's some national and international firms who are interested, but also the local firms here have to be fed on this project. So that's what our goal is, to make sure that happens.
Very well. Any other questions from the floor? Oh, we have some.
How does the project pay suppliers? It's a long project, and are you paying milestone based, or how do we build a project?
Some of it will be milestone based. You're not going to see a lot of we're going to pay you a pound for steel or for a cubic yard of concrete. Some of it is going to be, once this gets built, okay, there's a payment that goes to the prime. We are looking at prompt pay issues, and that was a huge issue in Michigan. And we got to the point where we had a fast moving project. We were spending, it ended up being $1 million a day. We paid that contractor every week without fail. So we're looking at prompt pay. We're looking at how can we structure this to where you built it this day, is what that next pay period you're going to get paid for. So we're going to be looking at quality initiatives to make sure that you're building what we asked you to build. But if you built it like we asked you, we're going to get you paid.
Excellent. Go ahead.
Maybe just a sneak peek for the meeting you told us in April on sequencing of packages, but can you share at all what you're seeing in terms of rolling out packages from the beginning? Is there going to be one big one and then some other lagging, or there are multiple ones starting at the beginning on the 80-year contract side?
So we think the bridge is going to be first. Second, you're gonna have the approach spans on either side, which will include SR-14. Once again, those are gonna be big contracts because I can't build half an interchange. I gotta get the whole thing built. But we're also gonna try and get some smaller packages for local streets and smaller things like retaining walls that can be broken out of those big packages and separate those things out. We don't wanna have just a big, huge contracts only up front. So those are things that the team is looking at now. And by the way, we hired a consultant firm that consists of ex-contractors. And they are looking at this as, okay, if I were building this, how would I build it? And they're looking at, okay, here are the things that IBR said are important. Now I'm gonna put that lens over it. So all of those things of getting small businesses engaged early and not having you guys wait until to the very end to start doing things is a part of our strategies.
Very good. Any other questions? If not, I would like to close the program in sharing that we will have monthly workshops on topics coming up. So you can check our CRDC calendar, check the Apex Accelerator calendar. Those will be hybrid and they'll be posted on a video library, Washington Apex YouTube. So if you miss one, you can log back in and catch up. And please let us know if Team CRDC and the Apex Accelerator can be of assistance.